What's going on, guys? Today's video is meant for the kids who are brand new to baseball and for the parents and coaches who are also new to baseball who want to help their kids out. As you get a little bit older and more advanced, you're going to learn that the swing is a very complex movement with a lot of moving parts that have to move correctly and in the right sequence in order for it to be mechanically sound. But when you're a beginner, before you get into any of those advanced movements, you want to start with the absolute basics, which is what we're going to talk about today. So let's get right into it. Now, before we get into the swing, I want to quickly talk about your grip, because if you're holding the bat incorrectly, you could be setting yourself up for failure before you even step into the box. So when we're talking about grip, the general rule of thumb is we want to either line up our knocking knuckles, which are these knuckles, or make a box with those knuckles and our punching knuckles like that. But the biggest thing that you want to avoid is you want to avoid lining up your punching knuckles like that. Now, if we do line up our punching knuckles like that and we go to turn our wrist, we're going to notice that the barrel kind of comes up and you're going to roll over the baseball like that. Whereas if you have these knuckles lined up and you turn your wrist, you're going to get a little bit more smoother bat path. And if our knuckles are lined up correctly and we come to the zone, we're going to be in a good palm up, palm down situation that we want to be in. Whereas if these knuckles are lined up, we can't really be palm up, palm down. So the first thing I want to talk about is their batting stance. So if you watch baseball on TV, you're going to see a lot of different stances, a lot of different styles. And as you get a little bit older, you can play with your stance and your style a little bit. But for the beginners, we're going to start with something super basic. Okay, so we want to get them to stand a little bit wider than shoulder width, okay, and get them to bend their knees. And then you want to get them to hold the bat and place their hands kind of just in front of their front shoulder, with their hands, their elbow, and their shoulders kind of level with the ground with the knob of the bat facing the catcher. Okay, this is a very basic stance, but it's what we get all our beginners to start with. And like I said before, as they get a little bit older and more comfortable with their swing, they can start playing around with their stance a little bit. So now we're going to talk about the load and their stride. Okay, so they're in their batting stance. We don't want kids just to go from here and then lunge forward at the ball. What we're gonna do is we're gonna weight transfer back and then stride forward. So a couple things that we want the beginners to look for is we don't want them to load back and straighten this front leg and come back down. Try to get them to keep their leg bent, so they just come back and then forward. And then when it comes to the stride, general rule of thumb is we want the stride to be somewhere around the size of their bat or the size of their inseam. Okay, you're gonna get some kids that don't really stride like this, or you're gonna get some kids that stride way too far. Okay, so like I said, general rule of thumb, somewhere around the size of your bat. Next, we're gonna talk about the lower half and getting kids to engage their legs and their hips. Okay, you're gonna find with a lot of beginners, they tend to only swing with their arms like that, but we wanna get them to use their hips and their legs. You may have heard the term Squish the Bug, which I'm gonna link that video above and below. But what that means is after they load and stride, you're gonna get them to squish a bug with their back foot. Okay, that's gonna force them to open up their hips. Now this is just a very basic movement. As you get a little bit older, you're gonna find that it's a little bit different, but for the beginners, it's a great way to get them to engage their hips. So as they swing, they're gonna squish a bug with their back foot and they're gonna straighten this front leg. Okay, that's what the bottom half looks like. So now let's talk about the full swing. Okay, they're in their batting stance, they're nice and neutral. They're gonna load back and stride forward. Now we're gonna start the swing. Okay, like we talked about before, they're gonna squish the bug with their back foot and straighten this front leg. But with the upper half, knob of the bat's pointing the catcher, we're basically just gonna draw a straight line from facing the catcher towards the ball. Okay, just like that. So squish the bug, straighten that front leg, knob towards the ball. And then at contact, we get them to look for three things. Okay, one, their head is behind or above their back knee, their shoelaces and their hips are facing the pitcher, and their front leg is straight. Okay, so what we get them to do is we get them to do a full swing, and you're gonna find that a lot of kids are way out front like this. So what we do is we get them to correct it on their own. Okay, get them to look for those three things. So they're gonna wanna straighten that front leg, turn this back hip towards the pitcher, and then get their chest and their head back behind their back knee. Okay, and then we get them just to swing again. You're gonna find them probably doing this, tell them to correct it. They're gonna straighten this front leg, turn that back hip, head behind the back knee. Now by getting them to do it on their own and correcting on their own each time, they're gonna learn what it's supposed to feel like to be in the correct position. So let's go through a quick recap. We're gonna get them to stand a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. Knees are bent, hand is in front of their shoulder, hands, elbow, shoulder, level with the ground. knob of the bat facing the catcher. Now we're gonna load, keeping that knee bent, stride forward about the size of our bat. Now we're gonna start our swing, squish the bug with our back foot, straighten our front leg. Now the bat's gonna be facing the catcher. Now it's facing the ball to contact. Shoelaces and hips facing the pitcher, head behind the back knee, front leg is straight to finish. So like I said before, this is just a very basic swing, something that we teach our younger players and our beginners. But as you get a little bit older, you're gonna find that each one of those movements is a little bit more complex. And if you wanna watch some videos on that, we have a ton of videos on this channel that dive into each one of those movements a little bit more. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you found value in the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button below, and I'll see you guys next week.